I'm Matt.
I'm Sarah.
And we're the Hammets. And one time we got into the most ridiculous fight over a box of cereal.
Yep.
Right at the beginning of our marriage, it was the first time we ever went grocery shopping. And so we're in there just having a good time, you know, married couple, buying our first groceries for our first apartment. All of a sudden, I see Sarah just open the box of cereal and just start eating cereal while we're shopping. And I don't know why, but it like ticked every anxiety I have. It's like, people are gonna think we're stealing food. Aren't you supposed to pay for food? I mean, it was like all of my rule following kind of nature like was just ticking, and it made me uncomfortable. And I said something, I don't even remember what I said. I was like,
You told me to stop.
somehow I told her to stop. I'm sure like I probably tried to be nice about it, but it probably came across not the way I wanted it to, which I think made you feel really hurt and offended.
Yeah, so my version is when we first got married, we had no money, which most people don't, and we had a budget of $25 a week, which is unreal, to be honest. I can't believe God provided and it worked. So we didn't really have date nights, so we were on a date night. And so that first time we went grocery shopping, I'm thinking, oh, this is so romantic. We're on a date. Oh my gosh, and I'm starving because we have no food, right? So
I could feed
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
I could feed
God provided. But so I'm like, this is so
Never
fun.
let my wife go hungry, okay?
This is so fun. So I cracked open the cereal and started eating because I was so hungry. And my carefree disposition is like, who cares? We're gonna pay for it. Everything's fine. For you, it just really stressed you out. And so that is the epitome of us. I'm like, whatever, everything's gonna be fine. And you feel very anxious by my carefree disposition. And I feel very shut down by your anxiousness.
Yeah. So I think for us, it was like, you know, she was like so upset that I said anything and I was uncomfortable, and it turned into like this atomic. I mean, I don't even remember. Maybe it was like after we left the grocery store, just like, it was one of the worst fights we had. And we had so much so that a few years ago, when we went through a marriage intensive, that came up. But it was really cool because it actually did 20 years later, as we brought it up, because I think it was kind of the source of a lot of other, it wasn't the source, but it was like a representation of a certain interaction that we have throughout our marriage that had caused both of us wounds. And our counselor helped us tremendously. She said, you know, nobody was right or wrong. It was like, you know, Sarah wasn't wrong to eat the cereal, but what crazy person does that, you know? In the store. Sorry if you're out there and you do that. And, you know, and I wasn't wrong with my upbringing to feel uncomfortable about it. It was just the way that we communicated about that disconnect that had really been the issue. And so, yeah, I think it was a good lesson for us to say, you know, it wasn't right, it wasn't wrong, but what are those things in your marriage that you feel like they can cause lots of blow-ups and disconnects? You know, can you have the grace on each other or give each other the benefit of the doubt enough to look at one another and say, man, you know, these silly arguments happen because, you know, there's something inside of each of us that maybe isn't right or wrong, maybe it's preference, but how can we show grace to each other and accept one another and forgive more quickly?
Well, and I think the thing I learned about myself is just because I'm carefree doesn't mean I always have to take it to the extreme. And also, I think I learned how to have compassion on someone who thinks differently than me. And that's been a steady process over our whole marriage, right? But like learning that your anxiety isn't necessarily mean to me or making me change who I am. Yeah. So learning, how to peacefully be who we are in our marriage.
Yeah, I think for me, anxiety is something for me that I've struggled with my entire life. And I have to look at those pressure points of the things that make me feel uncomfortable. And I have to learn how to take those things to the Lord and I have to learn how to find ways to like calm myself. And you know, in that moment, if I could go back, to be quite honest, like I just wouldn't say anything. I would just let her eat the cereal. And so, you know, that's something I had to learn is like, how do I, instead of just speaking my anxiety, how can I learn how to deal with it internally between me and God? You know, unless obviously something needs to be said. There are times in marriage things need to be said, but there's also a lot of times when we can just let those little things go.
I think we learned a lot about respecting each other too. That's been a long journey of, I think we've loved each other well, but mutual respect has been something that's been hard to navigate at times. And so learning to respect, okay, he feels this way about something and I feel this way about something. We can both, like you said, we can both feel those ways and respect each other's feelings and not be mean to each other in the process.
Yeah, and you don't always even see eye to eye on how things happened. So being willing to meet each other and each other's realities and find
having compassion for each other in those moments.
Yeah, not always easy.
It's really good.